my authority has been reduced to basically presiding over meetings. Now, in my city charter, the power to run the city is delegated to a city manager. Okay, so the authority that it gives the mayor is to make recommendations in the best interest of the people. Democratically, you can decide that we don't want to follow the mayor's recommendations.
Okay, family, we are here in, as you can see, Camilla, Georgia. It's about 3 hours outside of Atlanta, and we've come to try to shed some light on the segregation that's going on in the city.
Well, let me just share that there's multiple storylines going on about what's happening in Camilla. One is a story about me being denied keys to City Hall, which is a true story, and it has to do with mistreatment of me as a mayor. Another story has to do with the mistreatment of black mayors generally around the state who go through a lot of situations where some have been arrested, they've been ousted from office, they've been undermined in many different ways. And that's a story they've gone through even more than I've gone through in terms of mistreatment. But the story that Councilman Ventura Paulin and I developed was a story that has to do with our representation of the people in our city. He was elected in November. After the elections, our city manager, in a meeting where he was attending, made a proposal that he be given the power, that the power be taken away from, that we amend our city charter and give him the power to appoint all council committees, commissions, boards, authorities, and the city attorney. So we're looking at, like, under your watch, we have all these areas of segregation, from gerrymandering to a cemetery. Why would we give one gatekeeper the authority to do this, which is, even if these things didn't exist, this is an unusual amount of power for one person to wield. But why would we allow you to do this? So we began a non-violent protest where we would boycott city council meetings to shine light on this. So we were timely addressing something that we felt was outrageous. And in the process of addressing this, many storylines have developed, because it kind of goes back with the coincidences. Now we have 5 flat tires. One, the spare in the trunk, is flat too. You know, when you say, well, wow, you wouldn't even give him the keys to City Hall. And so, but everything, there's an explanation for it. So that's how it came up.
We've come to understand that Camilla, back in 1868, was known for a massacre that happened. About 20 or so so-called African Americans, they were put to death from marching from Albany to Camilla to protest them being expelled from legislature.
There was a conversation on Facebook recently, and there were a lot of, it was a group of local people. They happened to be all white. They happened to be, they had a lot of negative things to say about the mayor. It started out with the mayor is running the city in the ground. He's a liar. He's saying things. And some of the things I've said is that we don't have black police officers. We don't have one. So that's corroborated easily.
So we're saying, like, evidence.
Not even one. Not one. Which is an irrefutable fact. And what I try to stop doing is debating them. If I make 100 points and they say, I want to take point number 18 and debate you all day on this one, I take it and I say, well, look, let's just say it's a coincidence. It's a coincidence that the city is 70% black, but there are no black police officers. Let's say that's coincidence number one. It's 70% black, but in the cemetery there is a fence. And on one side of the fence, all black bodies are buried with no records. And on the other side of the fence, all white bodies are buried with no records.
So if you could just kind of give us some, what we're looking at, what we see in.
Absolutely. What you're looking at is, you're looking at the Oakview Cemetery in Camilla, Georgia. All blacks or African Americans are buried on this side of the cemetery. There are no records maintained. If you have loved ones who are buried here, you would have no way of knowing where their body is buried unless someone could actually tell you where they are.
Okay.
Here's a fence right here that serves as the demarcation line. Everyone buried on this side of the fence is white. It's Caucasian. And there's a story. I talked with a young man by the name of Paul Jackson, and his grandfather, Harrison Jackson, according to him and according to the memory of people here old enough to know, was in fact buried on this side of the cemetery. He was biracial, and the sheriff came to their home and told them that they had 24 hours to move his body or they would blow up the grave. And his body was exhumed, according to what I was told, and he was buried on this side. This was corroborated by the funeral home director in front of a reporter from Fox that I went to see. But it kind of underscores the level of tension and the mindset of segregation and the intentional and the deliberate intention to stay as separated as possible. And I think this fence symbolizes, segregation in people's hearts and souls and minds, and so serves as a physical barrier. And our goal is to try to eradicate the fences of segregation in the cemetery and throughout our city. Now, this fence, I understand, I talked to the person who put it up just yesterday, and I was told that it was a fence that was here prior to this fence, and it was taken down, and they were ordered to put it back up immediately. And this person put this fence up, according to him, in the 80s or 90s, with himself, a few city workers, and some and prisoner labor. And they erected this fence. He said this fence goes as far down as that way. It would probably be, if you stretched it out, maybe up to a mile long.
So everybody outside of the fence would be our people, and then everybody on the inside would be so-called white people.
Exactly.
And we're not allowed to be buried inside of here at all.
The last incidents of a black person being buried on that side, they were told to move the body, and the body was exhumed.
Right.
So now there is, according to the city manager, people can be buried anywhere. According to him, black people aren't buried there because they haven't paid $500 to be buried there.
So the excuse is, the reason that they're in here is because they've paid to be. So what makes this particular plot of land exclusive?
Right.
Right.
But his explanation now is that blacks didn't want to pay $500 to. So I asked for any record of any black person denying to pay $500 or making an application, and was told that it's $500, and then saying no after that, and they had nothing to corroborate that. But we look for excuses when there is segregation. Right. We never look for the perpetrator, to say this is what it is. We look for excuses and explanations that wind up being a theory, something that can be proved or disproved, but it sounds disingenuous, and it perpetuates the cycle of segregation or discrimination at issue.
Okay.
And that's what that does perfectly.
Okay.
It tries to justify what's undeniable under the law: segregation, no matter how it got there. This is black, that is white, this is a fence, this is a public-owned cemetery. That's segregation. Now, you can debate how it got that way, but that's called de facto segregation, and that is illegal.
Okay. And so now you're the team with Councilman Pollard. What do you guys plan on doing to remedy this?
Well, and I won't speak for Councilman Pollard. I'll let him speak in a second, but Councilman Pollard lives in the neighborhood next to this, and he's declared that this fence will come down. This is on a bus route for children. This is arguably the largest black, newest neighborhood in our city.
Wait, so you're saying that children have to ride on a school bus and pass this every single day, seeing and knowing that
there's the school bus route, and they have to walk out of their backyards and look over here to where they're relegated as a graveyard. And the person who put the fence up, he was a African American, who said that at the time he put this up, this was worse than a swamp. So there are people who lamented putting their loved ones here. It's just not it violates everything we feel about burial and going to an afterlife. And it's indignified. So Councilman Pollard, living in the neighborhood next to this, had the moral courage to say that this will not continue.
I live here. I see this on a daily basis. But I've always been an advocate for the youth. I always try to do anything that I can do to help anyone. But when the youth have to ride through, I'm talking about our future doctors, our future firemen, policemen, lawyers, you name it. When they have to ride this bus route, and this is a bus route that the bus run through that community, and they have to see this, and you can see these things from the road here daily, it's unacceptable. It's 2018, about to be 2018, and we still have segregation right here in our backyards. It's unacceptable, and it will not be tolerated. I vow to be that one voice, and that one voice was for the people who elected me into office. And this starts right here with desegregating our city. It starts here. Let's desegregate what is very visible, physically visible, right here. Amongst other things, let's at least start right here in the cemetery.
I would agree to your ideology of children being important because they are the future, and their children are very impressionable. So if you tell a child from his birth up until adulthood that you don't mean anything, you are just as good as your condition, then you're going to grow up with the mindset of this is about the best I can possibly be. When they have to ride by and see this segregation every single day, they're going to think, as you mentioned earlier, it's normal. And they won't have the courage to say this isn't normal because they don't know anything different.
Right, and it's like the old saying, if you think you can or if you think you can't.
You're
in
right.
Either case,
you're right.
You're right. And when a kid walks by this and it's reinforced, this is subliminal reinforcement. This is not subliminal, this is overt. But there are also other subliminal reinforcements that you can't do certain things and you're inferior.
You're limited to your condition.
Exactly.
Right.
You're limited to your condition, and nothing says that more emphatically than a fence that you pass every day that's saying that you don't have the right to be buried in dignity. Now, when you go to City Hall, we're 70% black, but there are only 3 black faces in City Hall. Of those 3, that includes the janitor. Now, let's just say it's a coincidence, because the true answer is I have an opinion, but factually, let's just say it's a coincidence. Then 99% of all white students who go to school in this city go to a historically all-white private school. Yes, that has become integrated recently by about 4 black athletes for the most part, and maybe you have 1 or 2 students that are not black athletes, but maybe you have still less than 10 black students. 99% of the black students go to the underfunded public school. And then the city is racially gerrymandered. You have only 2 districts, and 99% of whites have been packed in one district where they get to elect 3 officials, guaranteeing them 3 of 6 seats in city government. And historically has guaranteed them 4 with the mayor. So let's just say all of that is coincidence. My thing is, let's stop the coincidences. Okay? So when I'm talking with them and they get into these debates, it's like, listen, I'm just saying let's stop the coincidences. Okay? 4 flat tires at the same time, if we come back to that.
Right.
The coincidence is kind of getting to be too big. Exactly. Too big. You go out in the morning and all 4 of your tires are flat. That's kind of too big of a coincidence. So I don't want to say, well, this one is because you ran over a nail. This one is just low on air. This one is because it's inferior. Those are Michelins and it's not. Let's just stop the coincidence. Because they've used these arguments, you know, if you remember when Rodney King was being beat in LA, they justified every lip.
They did.
Or attempted to. They're like,
wouldn't stop.
yeah, we were saying lay down. This dude is bludgeoned. You beat him off reflexes, but they actually tried to justify every blow they gave this guy. And if you go back to slavery there was a justification. Now these people are inferior. We're doing something for them they can't do for themselves. These have been intellectualized arguments, and my attorney Ben Crump is saying, hey, let's stop trying to intellectualize, you know, these bad situations.
What was the idea, or what was told when you suggested about hiring black officers? Because you say that you made that recommendation.
Well, I came up with the recommendation because our city is a very rich, small city. It has more money. I'll give you an example. When Kasim Reed began his tenure as mayor of Atlanta, he said that the city of Atlanta had like $8 to $10 million in its reserve. It was not in good financial shape. My city has $10 to $12 million in its reserve, and it's only 5,000 people. That's a huge. Most cities are struggling. Yeah, and most cities are struggling just to make it. We have a surplus, and we have a $50 million budget. So you can think of it as a household. You can think of this city as a person who's worth $50 million or $12 million in their rainy day fund.
Okay.
And I use that to say, here's the analogy. I go to your house and you have 7 kids. $50 million and $12 million in your rainy day fund, and you're safe in your house. 3 of your kids have everything they want, and 7 of your kids are starving. I look in your backyard and you got a fence saying, well, I want 3 kids buried here, but the rest of them, you can bury them anywhere you want to over there. And then people come to your house, and all your accountants, your lawyers, your doctors, and everyone, you have required that these be the people to provide services to your family. I just described the city of Camilla by way of analogy.
Yeah.
So when I came aboard, I said that let's come up with a diversity plan. Now, you don't have to hire black people per se, but you can't use whatever process you've used in the past. We got to scrap that. We have a $12 million surplus, a $10 million, I think it was around 8 to 10 at the time. But the way the math came out, that we could take less than 3% of that surplus, which is $130,000, and create about 4 or 5 jobs and provide opportunities in city government for people to apply.
Okay.
And the black councilman said that I'm not voting for you. You haven't shown me a plan. I need to see a plan. Now, I think that's a plan. I think it's a colorful plan. I think it's details. I think it's, the spirit of it is well intended. But he rejected it first, and the council rejected it unanimously. And so that was the reason that they gave for that.
So how much was the rent here?
My rent was $61.
But
And when I was staying over here, mine was $23.
But the light bill is through the roof. You can pay
Light bill,
$61 for rent, but your light bill is $500, $600, maybe $1,000 in the project. Anything that the city of Camilla owns, they're over the light bill. So our light bills are high. But when I moved in the house, they say the city of Camilla don't do prepaid lights. It's a field, because when I moved in the house in the white folks section, it was on prepaid lights until they turned them off because I became over it, so I had to get a regular light bill.
you said what happens if you don't pay your light bill 3 times?
You got to move out the project.
You got to move out the project.
In the white folks section. They put her on the highlight bill when she moved in the white folks section.
We don't really have taxpayers, we have ratepayers. The burden of what taxpayers, the philosophy behind it, and the necessity of it is being undermined by the fact that it has been shifted to ratepayers. And the ratepayers are the 70% of the African Americans disproportionately. White landowners here figured, we don't really want to pay taxes, so let's keep the lowest millage rate in the state, almost, and pay no property tax. And we can tax everyone for their utilities, because we own our utilities.
So what do you think need to be changed?
Man, so much. I don't even know where to start at.
So we're a utility company. They hit you one time. They hit you by who owns the property. not the blacks. So don't you worry about it. We're going to get the people who live in public housing. We have people in public housing paying $300 to $500 utilities.
They overcharging folks for light bill.
We heard about that.
All that right there. Then like the mortgage where the people stay like in the housing authority project. The folks staying over there, man, paying $700 to $800 light bill, man. What? Yeah.
The way he explained it to us was that the people that owns the land, they're the ones that's paying taxes. He called it a tax versus rate or something like that.
Yeah.
So the people that live in the housing authority, they're paying the rate, while the people that own the land are paying the taxes.
Yeah.
So you end up paying more because he said, I think the city owns its own utilities.
Yeah, they do.
But Congress has the ability to fluctuate those rates.
Yeah, they do.
Which is why people are paying a higher rate. Okay. You saying they paying $700?
7, some on 8. 800, man. I don't seen it. Posted out.
So then it puts you in a position to where now you have to decide, do I buy food or do I pay my light bill? Or do I buy food or do I put gas in my car? That's what it's doing. And you saying so the so-called black people, they're the only ones having to deal with this.
Yeah.
So where do the white people, where do they live in this city? Because we've been just about around the city. Where they live on the outskirts? Or?
Basically, a lot of them are moved on the outskirts. A lot of them used to stay. Trying to say, what can I call it? I know it's Highway 37 over here by where the city over here. Okay. A lot of them used to stay over there years ago. But they moved from there. So it's really like a lot of blacks that buying the houses now.
Okay.
So a lot of them stay like on the outskirts and like countryside. Places you don't want to get caught at. So they think you're trying to,
Why don't you want to get caught? Why you say that?
Or they think you're going to be trying to, you looking out to steal or breaking somebody's house. I ain't never been no person like that. I always try to be straight up. Got no felony, got no background history,
But you say, but none of that matter.
None of that.
Just because you over there and you black.
Black. It's rough on a black person, man.
And so one of the arguments is like, okay, your consumption, but your rate is not just a matter of consumption. It's a function of your consumption times the rate you pay. It's just like saying gas, like stop driving if gas goes up to $5 a gallon. No, the rate at the pump. You're more concerned with the rate at the pump. That's the biggest factor rather than how much you drive. We all drive roughly, give or take. There's only so much electricity you're going to use. There are things. Every appliance almost has a rating and tell you that you could blow. Yeah, you can blow your AC 24 hours a day if you want, and if you want to do that, you're going to use $30 worth a month. So the biggest factor is the rate, and the rate that has been set by the city is a rate that allows the city to make profit that is deposited in local bank, profits and deposits that they use to lend money to who they want to lend it to, and maybe not even necessarily fairly, and the rates that they rent it, so they rent this money out and then they get a lot off this. So now we have ratepayers and a really an unfair burden on these ratepayers, because the taxpayers are very, very few and far in between, and their rates are very low. So if you're a landowner that owns 1,000 acres, you're laughing because, like, hey, rather than make me pay, you're making them pay. And one of the things that has been said, and it has racial undertones, is that blacks should, be made to pay because they use up all the social services and police services. So it's been a mentality, around the state of Georgia that, you can tax these communities, blacks and whites, and there are whites who pay the same rate. So, you have a lot of argument. We pay the same rate. It's like, of course, would you rather pay a utility rate that's high, or would you rather pay taxes on 1,100 acres of land? Yeah, right. Which one is more than the other, and one kind of spreads that liability, the price tag of that among a lot of other people. So it's kind of a unfair thing. One of the biggest things is the the tax, the ratepayer system that we have going on, the friends and family plan in city government, and the lack of representation of people here, 70% of which are African American, who don't have a voice. I've been their highest elected voice. No one else speaks for them. And when that voice is drowned out, you disenfranchise those people. It is the first time that we've had a light shine on this and amplified this, and even being elected in November, from November to now, we brought this much attention to it. So we are very encouraged, but it takes a lot of courage to do this, because a lot of people think that bravery just means you're just fearless. That's not what bravery means. Bravery and courage means that you're confronting something that obviously you see the fears in it. If not, it wouldn't be courageous. You know, if I jump off a cliff, you know, to save your life, and I didn't think that anything could happen to me, you know, that wasn't a brave act. I see the risk. Like, wow, I could lose my life trying to save yours. And maybe I am afraid, you know, in that situation, but I do it anyway. So we have to have more people who, you know, confront things that make them uncomfortable, confront things that may make them nervous or give them anxiety. And that's what it's all about. So I'm not afraid of, say, my adversaries, but I do carry a big burden. You know, I become a mayor who has to talk about things that puts my city on blast. I have to go on national television and say my city sucks in certain ways, that, you know, that I want to, you know, fix this. So I love my city. I represent all the people in my city, but I have to say I now have to potentially be a national pariah for the alt-right, who's going to say, hey, let's come after this guy, you know, attack him for race baiting and this and that. I understand those things. I understand the risk, and I am up to the task, and will fight all day and night.
Shalom, this is Bishop Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. Public message for our brothers and sisters in Camilla, Georgia. What you're going through today is modern day Jim Crow, segregation. There's ways around it, but it takes a lot of organization on behalf of our brothers and sisters, our men and women located in Camilla, Georgia. From what I understand, Camilla, Georgia is made up of 70% black people. That means you have a lot of power and don't even know it. When you read the book of Zephaniah, chapter 2, verse 1, the Most High gives us a clear message. He says, gather yourselves together. Yea, gather together, O nation not desired. There's power in unity. And that's what the black man has not realized today. I know they only say that we make up about 5% of the American, North America, but that's not true. When you read Hosea 1 and 10, the Most High says, we are like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. When people tell us, nations tell us that we are small, minuscule in this nation, we're small, that's false. That's psychological warfare they're doing on us, so that we can never realize we are the lion of the jungle. But guess what? We are that lion. We must gather together. Gathering together and boycott the major economic holidays like Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. If you can start there as you repent, you will have the power to start to shake Camilla, Georgia up and change things around for the betterment of our people.
Shalom. This is Bishop Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels. Stay up to date with our latest events, music, and classroom lessons. IUIC plans to continue visiting different countries where this gospel has not been preached before. IUIC needs your help in pushing this truth. So join us. Subscribe to our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and podcasts, and stay up to date with us. For more information, please visit www.israelunite.org.